A morning that changed everything. The Tennessee sun barely peeked through the curtains of the servants' quarters when Jessie Palmer woke to her alarm at 5 in the morning. She stretched in the narrow bed, still getting used to the luxury of having a room to herself. Back home in Clarksville, she shared a cramped trailer with her grandmother and 2 younger sisters. This mansion in Nashville felt like a different planet. Jessie splashed cold water on her face and stared at her reflection. 24 years old with calloused hands and big dreams, she had come to the city 3 weeks ago with nothing but a high school diploma and a strong back. The housekeeping job at the Donovan estate paid more than anything she could find back home, and she needed every penny for her grandmother's heart medication. The staff meeting by 6 o'clock. Jessie had joined the other staff members in the kitchen. Ruth Pemberton, the head housekeeper, stood with her arms crossed, surveying everyone with her usual sour expression. The woman had worked for the Donovan family for 12 years and never let anyone forget it. "Remember? The master does his pool exercises at 7 sharp, Ruth announced, her voice dripping with authority. "Stay out of his way. He hates being watched like some circus animal." Gerald, the butler, who had served the family for 2 decades, nodded solemnly. "Mr. Donovan values his privacy above all else. We are here to serve, not to interfere." Nina, the cook, barely looked up from chopping vegetables. She had made it clear from day one that she found Jessie naive and irritating. Jessie listened quietly, wiping down the marble countertops. She had learned quickly that new staff members were expected to be invisible and silent. The accident hot. Exactly 7 o'clock. Jessie was carrying fresh towels to the pool house when she heard the splash. It was louder than the usual sound of someone diving in. Something felt wrong. She quickened her pace, rounding the corner to see Blake Donovan's wheelchair tipped on its side at the pool's edge. His body thrashed in the water, arms flailing desperately as he tried to keep his head above the surface. "Help! Someone help!" Jessie screamed, dropping the towels. Ruth appeared from the garden path, saw what was happening, and froze. Her face went pale, but her feet stayed planted on the ground. Gerald emerged from the pool house, took one look, and actually stepped backward. "Dear God," he muttered, but made no move forward. Nina ran up, wiping her hands on her apron. "Let him drown," she whispered harshly. "You know how he treats us? Always yelling, always demanding. Maybe this is karma." Jessie's heart pounded in her chest. Blake's head dipped under the water. His movements were becoming weaker. "Are you all crazy?" Jessie shouted. She kicked off her shoes and jumped. Underwater battle, the water was deeper than Jessie expected, and colder. She was not a strong swimmer. The community pool in Clarksville had closed when she was 12, and the creek back home was shallow. But she pushed forward, her arms cutting through the water toward Blake. When she reached him, his eyes were wide with terror. He grabbed at her desperately, nearly pulling them both under. His legs, paralyzed from a car accident 5 years ago, dragged like anchors. I got you, Jessie gasped, hooking her arm under his chest. She kicked hard, trying to keep both their heads above water. Her lungs burned. Her arms ached. Blake's weight seemed impossible to manage. "Help us." She screamed toward the edge where the 3 staff members still stood watching. Finally, Daryl's conscience must have kicked in. He waded into the shallow end and reached out. Together, they managed to drag Blake to the steps. The aftermath, Blake collapsed on the pool deck. Coughing up water, his chest heaving, his expensive designer shirt clung to his thin frame. Despite his upper body strength from years of using the wheelchair, he looked vulnerable and broken. Jessie crawled out after him, her uniform soaked through, her brown hair plastered to her face. She knelt beside him, checking his breathing. "Are you okay? Can you breathe?" she asked, her voice shaking. Blake's eyes met hers. They were a striking blue-gray, and right now they held a mixture of shock, humiliation, and something else she could not quite identify. Ruth rushed forward with a towel, suddenly full of concern now that the danger had passed. "Mr. Donovan, let me help you back to your chair." "Don't touch me," Blake said, his voice hoarse but firm. He looked at each staff member in turn. You all just stood there. I was drowning and you stood there like I was a piece of furniture. Sir, we were in shock. Gerald tried to explain. We didn't know what to do, liar, Blake said flatly. He turned to Nina. I heard what you said. You wanted me to drown? Nina's face flushed red, but she said nothing. Blake looked at Jessie, who was wringing water from her uniform. What's your name again? Jessie Palmer, sir? You've only been here, 3 weeks? Yes, sir. He nodded slowly, then turned back to the others. You're all fired. Pack your things and get out of my house today, Ruth gasped. Mr. Donovan, please? I've been with your family for 12 years. And in 12 years, you never once showed me genuine kindness, Blake replied coldly. You showed up, you did your job, and you collected your paycheck. But when I actually needed help, you watched me die. Gerald, you've been here even longer. 20 years of loyalty, right? Where was that loyalty 5 minutes ago? Gerald opened his mouth, but no words came out. I want you gone within the hour, Blake said with finality. He looked at Jessie again. You stay. Help me back to my chair. Alone together an hour later, the mansion was eerily quiet. The other staff had packed and left, some in tears, others in silent fury. Jessie stood in the grand foyer, still in her damp uniform. Wondering what she had gotten herself into, Blake wheeled himself out from his study. He had changed into dry clothes and looked more composed, though his hands still trembled slightly on the chair's wheels. I suppose you're wondering if you just made a terrible mistake, he said. Jessie considered lying, then decided on honesty. The thought crossed my mind, yes, sir. For the first time, something almost like a smile crossed his face. At least you're honest. That's more than I can say for the others. He wheeled closer. I need to ask you something important, Jessie. Why did you jump in? You barely know me. From what you've seen, I'm not exactly a pleasant person to be around. Jessie met his gaze directly. Because you're a human being, sir. And human beings don't deserve to drown, no matter how grumpy they are. Blake did smile then, a real one that transformed his usually hard features. Grumpy, that's diplomatic. Paused. The truth is, I am difficult. The accident that put me in this chair also took away my patience, my trust in people, and apparently my sense of gratitude. But you just saved my life, and I want you to know I won't forget that. I didn't do it for gratitude, Jessie said quietly. I know. That's exactly why you're the only one I want working here. He gestured around the massive house. Think you can handle this place on your own? At least, until I figure out what to do about staff. Jessie looked around at the chandeliers, the marble floors, the priceless artwork. It was overwhelming. But she thought about her grandmother's medication, about her sister's school supplies, about finally having a chance at something better. I can handle it, she said with more confidence than she felt. Blake studied her for a long moment. I believe you can. Come on, let's get you into dry clothes. Then we need to talk about everything that's about to change around here. As Jessie followed Blake's wheelchair deeper into the mansion, she had no idea how right he was. Everything was about to change. For both of them. Discovering the truth 3 weeks had passed since the pool incident, and Jessie had settled into a rhythm managing the vast Donovan mansion. The work was exhausting, but satisfying. She cleaned, cooked simple meals, and helped Blake with his daily routines. What surprised her most was how their relationship had shifted from employer and employee to something closer too. Friendship. Blake was still difficult sometimes, snapping when his pain flared up or when his physical therapy sessions went poorly. But Jessie had learned to see past the anger to the frustration underneath. He was not mean, he was hurting, and hurt people often lashed out at those closest to them. One afternoon, while dusting Blake's home office, Jessie noticed something odd about his antique desk. She ran her cloth along the bottom drawer and felt it catch on something. Curious. She pulled the drawer out completely and discovered a hidden compartment beneath the false bottom. Inside were dozens of letters, all in envelopes yellowed with age. She picked one up carefully. The return address read Patricia Donovan, with a post office box in Knoxville. The letters were all addressed to Blake, spanning the last 5 years. Jessie's hands trembled as she realized what she had found. These were unopened letters from Blake's mother, hidden away where he would never see them. "What are you doing?" Jessie jumped at Blake's voice. He had wheeled into the office silently, and now his face was dark with suspicion. "I was dusting and the drawer got stuck," Jessie explained quickly, holding up the letters. "Blake, these are from your mother. There must be 50 of them here." His face went from suspicious to shocked in an instant. "That's impossible. My mother and I haven't spoken since right after my accident. She doesn't even know this address. Then how did these get here?" Jessie brought the letters to him. Blake took them with shaking hands, examining the postmarks. His jaw clenched tighter with each envelope he looked at. "These go back 5 years. Every few weeks, like clockwork." He looked up at Jessie, and she saw a raw pain in his eyes. "Someone has been intercepting these. Someone in this house has been keeping my mother's letters from me." The confrontation, it did not take long to figure out who. Blake called his former butler Howard, who had worked for the family before Gerald. After some pressure and the threat of legal action, Howard admitted the truth. He had intercepted the letters on orders from Blake's father before his death, and Gerald had continued the practice afterward. "Your father thought it was best," Howard explained over the phone, his voice defensive. "He said your mother abandoned you when you were young, that she did not deserve access to you after the accident. He was protecting you." "My father is dead," Blake said coldly, "and he had no right to make that decision for me. Neither did Gerald." After hanging up, Blake sat in silence for a long time, staring at the pile of letters. Jessie made tea and set it beside him, then quietly moved to leave. "Stay," Blake said. "Please. I don't want to be alone right now." Jessie sat in the leather chair across from his desk and waited. Finally, Blake opened the first letter. His eyes scanned the handwritten words, and Jessie watched his expression shift from anger to confusion to something softer. He read letter after letter, occasionally wiping his eyes. "She's been trying to reach me this whole time," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Every letter is an apology, an explanation, an invitation to talk. She had severe depression when I was young. That's why she left. She thought we would be better off without her dragging us down." He looked at Jessie with shining eyes. "She's been in treatment for years. She got better. She wanted to rebuild our relationship, but she thought I was ignoring her letters. She thought I hated her." "What are you going to do?" Jessie asked gently. Blake stared at the most recent letter, dated just 2 months ago. "I'm going to see her, tomorrow. Will you come with me?" The journey to Knoxville the next morning. They loaded into Blake's accessible van and made the 3-hour drive to Knoxville. Blake was quiet most of the way, staring out the window at the rolling Tennessee hills. Jessie drove, occasionally glancing at him with concern. "I don't know what to say to her," Blake admitted as they neared the city. "I spent 5 years believing she abandoned me twice. Once when I was a kid, and again after my accident. I said horrible things to her in the hospital. I told her I never wanted to see her again." "Start with the truth," Jessie suggested. "Tell her you never got her letters. Tell her you're sorry. Tell her you want to try again." The care facility where Patricia Donovan lived was a pleasant building surrounded by gardens. According to the latest letter, she had moved here after a small stroke 2 years ago. She needed minimal assistance but preferred the security of having medical staff nearby. Blake's hands gripped his wheelchair wheels so tightly his knuckles turned white as they approached. "The front desk. We're here to see Patricia Donovan," Jessie told the receptionist. The young woman's face brightened. "Oh, wonderful. She'll be so happy. She's in the sunroom. She spends most afternoons there reading." As they made their way down the hall, Blake's breathing became shallow. Jessie placed a hand on his shoulder. "You can do this." The reunion Patricia Donovan sat by a large window, afternoon light streaming across her silver hair. She was thin and elegant, with the same blue-gray eyes as her son. A book lay open in her lap, but she seemed to be staring out at the garden rather than reading. Blake's voice came out barely above a whisper. Patricia's head snapped toward them. For a moment, she just stared, as if she could not believe what she was seeing. Then her hand flew to her mouth, and tears began streaming down her face. "Blake, is it really you?" "It's me." He wheeled forward slowly. "I'm sorry it took so long." Patricia stood on shaky legs and closed the distance between them. She knelt beside his wheelchair and took his face in her hands, studying him as if memorizing every feature. "My boy, my beautiful boy. I thought I would never see you again. I never got your letters," Blake said, his own tears falling now. "Someone hid them from me. I just found them yesterday. I came as soon as I could." Patricia made a sound between a laugh and a sob. "I thought you hated me. I thought you wanted nothing to do with me. Thought you abandoned me again," Blake admitted. "I thought you came to the hospital once and then disappeared forever. I thought you did not care." "I've never stopped caring," Patricia said fiercely. "Not for one single day. I left when you were young because I was sick, Blake. So sick I could barely get out of bed. I thought you and your father would be better without me there making everything darker. But I never stopped loving you. I got help. I got better. And I have been trying to reach you ever since." They held each other then. Mother and son reunited after years of painful silence. Jessie stepped back to give them privacy, wiping her own tears. A new plan over the next few hours, Blake and Patricia talked. They shared 5 years of missed conversations, explanations, apologies, and slowly began rebuilding trust. Jessie sat nearby, occasionally bringing water or tissues, but mostly just bearing witness to the healing. As the sun began to set, Blake made a decision. "Come live with me, Mom. The mansion is huge and empty. I have plenty of space, and I just fired all my staff, except Jessie. We can really start over this time." Patricia looked uncertain. "Are you sure?" "I don't want to be a burden." "You're not a burden," Blake said firmly. "You're my mother. And I have wasted 5 years we could have had together because of someone else's interference. I'm not wasting any more time." Patricia looked at Jessie. "What do you think? Would you mind having an old woman underfoot?" Jessie smiled warmly. "I think it's exactly what this house needs. It's too big and quiet for just the two of us. Besides, I could use some help. Blake is terrible at following my cleaning schedule." "I heard that," Blake said, but he was smiling. Patricia laughed, a sound full of joy and relief. "Then yes. Yes, I would love to come home with you." Settling in 2 weeks later, the mansion felt like a completely different place. Patricia had moved into a first-floor suite that Blake had quickly renovated to be fully accessible. The house filled with the sound of her piano, playing each morning, and the smell of her baking in the afternoons. Jessie watched as Blake transformed. The angry, bitter man who had nearly drowned was gradually replaced by someone lighter. Someone who laughed more easily and smiled without forcing it. He threw himself into physical therapy with new determination, working with Dr. Raymond Cole, a patient and encouraging therapist. "I want to stand on my own when Mom plays piano," Blake told Jessie one evening after a particularly grueling session. "I want her to see me make progress." "You will," Jessie assured him, helping him stretch his tired muscles. "You're already so much stronger than when I first got here." Blake caught her hand, looking at her seriously. "None of this would have happened without you, Jessie. You've saved my life twice. Once in that pool, and once when you found those letters. You gave me my mother back." Jessie felt her cheeks warm. "You would have found them eventually. Maybe not." He squeezed her hand gently. "Thank you." An unexpected letter one morning, about a month after Patricia moved in, Jessie received a letter of her own. She recognized the return address immediately. Tennessee State University. School of Nursing. Her hands shook as she opened it. She had applied months ago, before taking the job at the Donovan Mansion, never really believing she had a chance. The tuition was expensive, and her grades from her small-town high school were nothing special. "Dear Miss Palmer," the letter began, "we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted into our nursing program with a full scholarship based on financial need and your entrance exam scores." Jessie read the letter 3 times. Unable to believe it. A full scholarship. A chance to become a nurse. Everything she had dreamed about since watching nurses care for her grandmother. During her hospital stays, but the program started in just 4 weeks. In Nashville, not far from the mansion, but it would require full-time attendance. She would have to leave her job. She would have to leave Blake and Patricia. That evening at dinner, Jesse's distraction must have been obvious. Patricia finally asked, "Is everything all right, dear? You've barely touched your food." Jesse looked at them both, these people who had become like family in such a short time. "I got accepted to nursing school. Full scholarship. Classes start in 4 weeks." Patricia's face lit up with genuine joy. "Jesse, that's wonderful. You must be so excited." Blake's expression was harder to read. He set down his fork carefully. "That's great news. Really great." But his voice lacked enthusiasm. "I haven't decided if I'm going," Jesse said quietly. "What?" Patricia looked shocked. "Why on earth not?" "Because you need me here. The house, Blake's therapy, everything. I can't just leave you both." Blake's jaw tightened. He pushed back from the table. "Excuse me." He wheeled out of the dining room quickly. Jesse and Patricia exchanged worried glances. "I'll talk to him," Patricia said gently. "But Jesse, you cannot give up this opportunity. We'll figure something out." Jesse found Blake in his study an hour later, staring out the window at the dark garden. She knocked softly on the doorframe. "Can I come in?" He nodded without turning around. Jesse sat in the chair across from his desk. "I upset you." "You didn't upset me." He finally turned to face her. "I'm upset with myself. When you said you might not go to nursing school, my first feeling was relief. Relief that you would stay here. And that's incredibly selfish of me. It's not selfish to want help. It's selfish to hold you back from your dreams because I've gotten used to having you around," Blake said firmly. "Jesse, you've saved my life. You brought my mother back to me. You helped me start living again instead of just existing. And now I need to return the favor. You need to go to that nursing school. Who will take care of things here? We'll hire new staff. People we can trust this time. Mom and I will manage." He wheeled closer to her. "You came to Nashville with dreams, remember? Don't let me be the reason you give them up." Tears pricked Jesse's eyes. "I don't want to leave you both. And don't leave forever," Patricia said from the doorway. Both Jesse and Blake turned to see her standing there. "Stay until the semester starts. Help us find good people to hire. Then go to school during the week and visit on weekends when you can. This will always be your home, Jesse, whether you work here or not." The final weeks, the next 4 weeks, passed in a blur of activity. Jesse helped Blake and Patricia interview potential staff members, this time being much more careful about who they hired. They found a kind cook named Francis, a quiet groundskeeper named Robert, and a part-time aide named Michelle. What experience working with people in wheelchairs? Blake continued his physical therapy with remarkable dedication. 3 weeks before Jesse was set to leave for school, he stood upright with the support of parallel bars for a full 2 minutes. Tears streamed down Patricia's face as she watched her son stand tall for the first time in 5 years. "I told you I'd do it," Blake said, his legs shaking with effort, but his voice strong. Dr. Cole beamed with pride. "If you keep this up, you might be using a walker within the year." "That's the plan," Blake said, his eyes meeting Jesse's across the room. "I want to walk Jessie to her first day of classes." It was an ambitious goal, perhaps impossible. But Jesse had learned that Blake Donovan did not make promises he did not intend to keep. Preparing to leave the night before Jesse was set to move into the nursing school dormitory, Patricia insisted on making a special dinner. The dining room table was set with the fine china usually reserved for holidays, and candles flickered in silver holders. "This is too much," Jesse protested when she saw the spread. Roast chicken, fresh vegetables from the garden, homemade rolls, and a chocolate cake for dessert. "Nonsense," Patricia said, ushering her to her seat. "You're part of this family, Jesse Palmer, and families celebrate important moments together." Over dinner, they reminisced about the past few months, the pool incident that had brought them together, the discovery of the hidden letters, Patricia's move into the mansion, Blake's progress in therapy. So much had changed in such a short time. "I have something for you," Blake said as they finished dessert. He handed Jesse an envelope. Inside was a check for an amount that made Jesse gasp. "Blake, I can't accept this. It's too much. It's not a gift," he said quickly. "It's payment for everything you've done. and it's a scholarship edition. You shouldn't have to work while going to school. Focus on your studies. He's right, Patricia added. You've earned every penny of that and more. Take it without guilt. Jesse's eyes filled with tears. I don't know how to thank you both. By becoming the best nurse you can be, Blake said simply. By helping other people the way you helped me. That's all the thanks we need. Move-in day the next morning. Blake and Patricia both insisted on helping Jessie move into her dorm room. The small space was nothing like the luxury of the mansion, but Jessie loved it immediately. It was hers, earned through hard work and determination. Blake looked around at the narrow bed, the simple desk, the shared bathroom down the hall. Are you sure you want to give up your room at the mansion for this? Jessie laughed. This is perfect. Besides, my room at the mansion isn't going anywhere, right? Never, Patricia promised, hugging her tightly. You'll always have a home with us. As they were leaving, Blake paused at the door. Jessie, I need to tell you something. She turned to face him, curious about his serious tone. These past few months with you have been the happiest I've been since before my accident, he said carefully. You made me want to live again, not just survive. You're important to me. More important than I probably should admit. Jessie's heart raced. Blake, he held up a hand. I'm not asking for anything. You're about to start an incredible new chapter of your life, and you should focus on that completely. I just wanted you to know that whenever you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be here, waiting. Before Jessie could respond, Patricia gently took Blake's wheelchair and began pushing him toward the elevator. Come on, son. Let's give her space to settle in. Blake looked back once, giving Jessie a small smile that held both hope and acceptance. The first semester nursing. The coursework was intense, the practical labs were challenging, and the study requirements left her exhausted most nights. But she loved every minute of it. True to her promise, she visited the mansion most weekends. Each time she returned, she noticed changes. Blake was using a walker now, taking slow but steady steps around the house. Patricia had started a garden club with some neighbors. The mansion felt alive in a way it never had when Jessie first arrived. Tell me about your classes, Blake would say during their Saturday morning breakfasts. Jessie would describe her anatomy lessons, her practice with IVs, her rotations at the hospital. He listened to every word with genuine interest. You're going to be amazing at this, he said one morning. You have the technical skills, but more importantly, you have the heart. You actually care about people. That's what makes a great nurse. During her Thanksgiving break, Jessie helped Blake with an extended physical therapy session. As he walked the length of the hallway with his walker, she stayed close beside him, ready to help if he stumbled. Been thinking about reopening my company, Blake said between steps. Before the accident, I ran a tech startup. We developed accessible technology for people with disabilities. I shut it down after the accident because I was too angry and bitter. But I think it's time to start again. That's wonderful, Jessie encouraged. What changed your mind? Blake paused at the end of the hallway, breathing hard from the exertion, but smiling. You did. You showed me that life is about moving forward, not staying stuck in the past. If you can chase your dreams, so can I. A Christmas promise. Christmas at the mansion was magical. Patricia decorated every room with lights and garlands. Francis prepared a feast. All the new staff members had become like family, and they celebrated together. On Christmas morning, Blake gave Jessie a small wrapped box. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a pendant shaped like a nurse's cap. For when you graduate, he said. A reminder of where you started and how far you've come. Jessie hugged him tightly. Thank you. For everything. For believing in me. For pushing me to go to school. For being my friend. Always. Blake promised. No matter what happens, you'll always be part of this family. As January arrived and Jessie returned to school for her second semester, she felt something shift inside her. She was no longer the uncertain girl from Clarksville who had jumped into a pool on instinct. She was becoming someone stronger, more confident, more sure of her place in the world. Spring breakthrough in March. Jessie received a call that made her rush back to the mansion in the middle of the week. Blake had something important to show her. When she arrived, Patricia met her at the door with tears in her eyes. "Go to the garden. He's waiting for you there." Jesse hurried through the house and out to the garden where Blake had fallen into the pool nearly a year ago. He stood there. No walker, no wheelchair, just standing on his own 2 legs. "Surprise," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Jesse ran to him, and he caught her in a strong embrace. For the first time since his accident, Blake Donovan was standing and hugging someone without any support. "You did it," Jesse whispered against his chest. "You actually did it." "We did it," Blake corrected. "None of this would have happened without you believing in me first." They stood there together as spring flowers bloomed around them. 2 people who had saved each other in more ways than one. The future unfolds as summer approached, and Jessie prepared for her final year of nursing school. She realized that the scared girl who had jumped into a pool to save a stranger had found something she never expected. A family, a purpose, and a love that had grown slowly but surely over months of shared struggles and triumphs. Blake had reopened his company, was already developing new accessible technologies. Patricia had published a memoir about overcoming depression and rebuilding relationships. And Jessie was on track to graduate top of her class. On a warm June evening, as they sat together in the garden, Blake took Jessie's hand. "I meant what I said on your move-in day. I'll wait as long as you need. Forever, if that's what it takes." Jessie looked at this man who had transformed from a bitter, angry person into someone full of hope and determination. She thought about the journey they had shared, the lives they had changed, the family they had built. "I don't think you'll have to wait much longer," she said softly. Blake's face lit up with the kind of pure joy that Jesse had first glimpsed when he reunited with his mother. It was the joy of second chances, of new beginnings, of choosing to live instead of just survive. As the sun set over the mansion, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Jesse knew that sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin with the simplest act of courage. Jumping in to save someone who is drowning, even when you are barely learning to swim yourself.